Hello everyone, welcome to the Norm 2026 team building guide. Today's episode is the second one on balance. So looking back at the team building archetype spectrum, we are now approaching the middle. This is the most reliable, safe, and stable form of Pokemon team building and playing. Alright, so the strengths and weaknesses of balance. So the pros is that you have good winning chances against all other team building styles. So it's very stable into offense, stable into stall, and stable against opposing balance. So it's very skill expressive. That means that it rewards you being a better player than your opponent more than any other play style. For example, hyper offense can be complete bullshit. Like you just pull up with Cloyster, Volcarona, Dragonite, and a bad player can just blow through a slightly better player by sheer just setting up and clicking the obvious button 10 times in a row. Stall is extremely reactive, You don't have to make plays with stall. Sometimes all you have to do is just make the obvious switch, recover, keep everything healthy, set up your hazards, and just keep on switching with your regenerated Pokemon or, Chansey Skarmory. However, balance rewards playmaking. That means sometimes making slightly risky decisions, but reading your opponent, these types of skills become very important for balance. And so it's quite enjoyable and it rewards the better player, like I said. And balance is the ultimate archetype for making a feature mon work. For example, if you have something ridiculous, something silly, something goofy you want to make work, you should put it in a balance team because at least it's going to be somewhat stable and playable. If you pull up with a garbage mon with hyper offense, maybe it won't do anything, won't fit at all, and you're just gonna end up sacking it turn 3. If you play stall, then if it's not a stall Pokemon, it's not meant to be there, So balance is perfect in that regard. Is that in the skeleton, the balance structure supports making a feature mon work. And like I said, the stability is very important. So historically in tournament play, for example, balance is what everyone brings because you never know what could happen. Sometimes unlucky events, RNG, or maybe you have a brain fart and make a bad play. You don't want that to be the end of the game, So balance is good in that regard as well. That just small errors might not derail you completely on your game plan. It's definitely different from hyper offense. If you fail to get up your stealth rock lead, the game is a disaster. And same with stall. If for some reason one of your critical walls gets sniped off by some RNG, some extreme luck, then stall also fails to function as a stall. But there are some downsides, namely that because it is reliant on better team building and better play, an inexperienced player would pretty much never beat a better player in balance versus balance. They'll always lose. So if you're an inexperienced player, you have to be ready for that. If you really want to win, like if you're a tournament underdog, you should stick to hyper offense or stall. Okay. And then another downside, this is very unique to Pokefind, is that some Pokemon are really hard to obtain. For example, a really stable balanced Pokemon would be an HPI Zapdos, for example. I don't have an HPI Zapdos. Now, I do have several Zapdos. Zapdos is just that good, you don't need HPIs, but not everyone can afford a Zapdos. In that case, sometimes the alternatives aren't exactly what you're looking for, and an otherwise perfect team has imperfect flaws. Alright, let's get into explaining what each role of the Pokemon should play in a balance team. Now, balance is an extension of what I explained in the offense section. Offense typically has roughly 3 to 4 offensive Pokemon that are fast, can set up or do both. But in a balanced team, that number is reduced to 2 and more frequently 3 Pokemon that are strong and fast. And then 3 or so defensive pivots or defensive answers or a defensive spinner, that sort. So in order to build a balanced team, this is very important. I want to pick a feature Pokemon to build along. That doesn't mean the Pokemon has to be a piece of garbage. Feature Pokemon typically means you're bringing in something silly. But in this case, a feature Pokemon is just the centerpiece of that team. What is that team's identity like? And this is pivotal because you want that identity so you could pick the other Pokemon around it to supplement that. For example, a Weavile team would want something that handles Conkeldurr, that handles Keldeo, and that handles Clefable. A Thunder's team might want something that handles Weavile, something that handles Banded Dragonite with Extreme Speed, or Tyranitar with Chople Berry. You want stuff that can remove the weaknesses so that the feature Pokemon can put in that work. Like a Specs Keldeo is a fantastic feature mon right now. That Specs water move is pretty much impossible to switch into without like a Gastrodon or a Jellicent. But what are Keldeo's limitations? Well, I just said, Jellicent is a limitation. Latios and Latias are a limitation to Keldeo, and Dragonite might be a limitation to Keldeo. So what are ways we can do to remedy that so that Keldeo can safely come in, click water moves, and not face severe drawbacks and have to sacrifice the Pokemon? Azumarill is another great one because it has so many strengths going for it, but of course has weaknesses. Its big one is that its speed sucks. It's slow. So a lot of fast Pokemon can't, like Superior can revenge kill it. So what are some ways you can handle Superior? Well, you can consider Tornadus, you can consider Zapdos, So that way we can pick out what Pokemon will perfectly supplement this balancing. So another role that's important after this is the win condition. Now, win condition can be the Pokemon you're featuring. In that case, you just have to flip the script around. But the idea is the same. Every balance team wants a strong breaker. Specs Keldeo, Bandit, Weavile. Notice that these Pokemon typically have the choice items because you want to make big progress with them. But more frequently than not, they cannot win the game on themselves. They can't boost their strength. They can't finish out the game. They make progress in the game. They wall break. That's the role. But the win condition is the ultimate way you're going to finish out that game. Because, you want to break the cycle eventually. You're going to wall break, wall break, wall break. How can you finish that game out? You want a win condition. And this is where there are fantastic options. The one I use a lot is Calm Mind and Clefable. Because it's very easy to set up with. And it has a positive matchup against a ton of stuff. And the one thing, it fears is that Keychain, right? So that's where the wall breaker choice comes in. You want something that breaks Keychain. And in this way, you want to pick two things that are synergistic. You want the wall breaker to break the things that the win condition cannot, and you want the win condition to threaten out the things that the wall breakers cannot. So pick stuff that is synergistic in that regard. So I do love Weavile and Clef, for example, because Weavile will knock off Heatran leftovers, will knock off Scizor Choice Band, will knock off slower Excadrill, Rapid Spin, knock off Magnezone. All those steel types want to switch into the ice move, but they can't switch to knock. So and also Clefable switches into Conkeldurr and Mach Punch, for example. So Weavile Clef is a classic, but Clef works with a ton of stuff for and you can justify it in many ways. For example, you could have a strong fire type breaker. You could have a strong fighting type breaker, so that it removes Heatran. In that way, you can consider a ton of options. So those two are probably the most important that I want you to take away. You want the breaker and you want the win condition to close out the game. All right. The next up is probably the pivot. Now, just like offense, pivots are so important because you want to get in that feature Pokemon safely. So this section of Mons wants a safe entry somehow. And pivots are the best way to do it. So you have fast pivots like Tornadus or Scarf Rotom. Then you have slower pivots like a Bold Rotom and a Mandibuzz. U-turn, these are slow pivots. Even stuff like Scizor, a defensive defog Scizor. I don't have it in this section, but defensive defog Scizor can be a pivot. So these are critical. You want at least one or two. And then lastly, the most important thing is like the pit of a Stealth Rock remover, because balanced teams and balanced games are going to be a little longer. You want to keep hazards off. So the most reliable one that I use all the time is Excadrill. But you can consider Starmie because Starmie doubles as a speed control. And Tentacruel is also great because its water poison typing is pretty useful. Unfortunately, it is lacking in recovery, but sometimes you can play accordingly. And then I mentioned briefly, but you want speed control. So sometimes the breaker you choose, a feature mon, is a slow Pokemon. For example, I have a Specs Modest Chatot here. If I wanted to make a Specs Modest Chatot team, it's going to be slow. You're going to have Chatot, and you're probably going to have a defensive, slow win condition like a Dragonite that needs setup in order to outspeed. So that's why a Scarfer is really useful. Like a Scarf Latios is a classic. Scarf Landorus is going to be a classic. You want something that can revenge kill. And this is where the third fast Pokemon comes in. It can be something even fast, just regular fast Pokemon. Maybe you could do a Chatot team with Weavile. Now this is a little risky because both of them are weak to Stealth Rock, so I consider stuff like that as well. But basically, you want speed. Maybe Chatot and Superior can work, and Superior can be speed control. But basically, you really do need to have at least one thing that can revenge kill reliably, because otherwise, you're gonna take unnecessary damage every time. Priority is another good way. So maybe if you do have Bandit Scissor, you could ease up on the speed requirements, but consider that. Scarfers are pretty important. And then lastly, you want to fill with reliable defensive answers, the big classic, and also Stealth Rock. You want the hazard setter, Stealth Rock Gliscor, Stealth Rock Heatran, Stealth Rock or Spikes, Skarmory, Stealth Rock or Spikes Ferrothorn. And you have some other slightly more niche stuff like Jellicent and Cofagrigus. So this is the balance structure. So now we're going to go into a freestyle team building section. So I want to show you how I'm thinking, and hopefully this would really drive home the points I'm trying to make. Okay, now let's do a freestyle team building section. Give it a moment, and I thought that we will do Gengar today. Gengar is something I haven't used in a very long time, mainly because Weavile is so popular. But let's give it a try. Let's try to make a team that handles the fact that we can't be pursued trapped by Weavile. Okay, so we're going to do Gengar. We're going to move it to this page, and we're going to put it at the top of the pyramid. And we're going to address the things Gengar is good against and Gengar is weak against. So Gengar is good against stuff like Clefable, and Gengar has access to a very hard to switch into Shadow Ball. Ghost Stab is very useful, of course. And it also has access to Focus Blast to hit common special defensive walls like special defensive Excadrill or Heatran. So, and Tyranitar, of course. So it has pretty good coverage and pretty good stabs. What is weak against? Like I said, it's very weak against Weavile Pursuit. Also weak against Choice Band Scissor Bullet Punch, different form of priority. It is frail. Speed ties Latios, and unfortunately this Gengar's 30 speed, so it's gonna speed tie with Latios, which kind of sucks sometimes. So there is some things to be aware of. Okay, so let's work towards addressing that. So first off, I'm going to pick something that can take advantage of Weavile. And the one that comes to mind frequently is a Calm Mind substitute Keldeo. Because Calm Mind substitute Keldeo can sub up in Calm Mind on a Weavile that's locked into Pursuit and perhaps win the game in there. So this is the duo I'm going to go with, the Breaker and the Win Condition. So that checks off two things that I was looking for in the previous section where we talked about the roles each Pokemon is supposed to play. Now let's address a pivot. So we have a few pivots to choose from and many more that aren't listed here. I'm going to go with Zapdos. Now the reason why I'm picking Zapdos for this role is because we need a Scizor answer. Like I said, Choice Band, Scizor, U-Turn, and Bullet Punch, very annoying. So you're going to want a Zapdos. Now if this is static, even better, because it would paralyze Scizor for us. Also, Scarf, U-Turn from stuff like Landorus will be very annoying. And also, because Gengar is weak to knockoff and Tornadus is super common, we want a Torn check, and a static Zapdos would be great for that. Pressure Zapdos is also great as a Torn check. So I think Zapdos will be the best pivot option. Now we're going to keep going. We're going to go about what else we're looking for. We need a spinner. And I think I'm going to go with an ever-reliable Excadrill, because I think that is my favorite spinner personally, and this is a max special defense, max speed set. But I think a max special defense, max HP set would be better. But I don't have that. This is Spin and Rock, so that does check off both roles for us, which is another great advantage of Excadrill. So we have Spin and Rocks condensed into one role. And then we're gonna need something for Keldeo, opposing Keldeo. Like imagine opposing Keldeo Hydro Pump or a Rain Team. Oh man, it'll be over for us. So we were gonna put in a Ferrothorn, and I think because we are Stealth Rock on Excadrill, we can run a Spike stack team with Ferrothorn. I think Spikes is very, very underrated. Some people use it. Other people I never see use Spikes. I think Spikes, making progress with Spikes is very, very good. And I really like this because Gengar is a spin blocker. So if you're very bold, you can spin block into Tentacruel. And people don't really expect Ghost type in this meta. There's very few Ghost types due to Weavile, like I said. Now, this team looks pretty good to me. However, base 110 Timid is as fast as we're getting. I'm noticing a lot of flaws here. Namely, we are weak to Alakazam, or just Psychic in general, like faster Psychic types like Scarf. Namely Zam. Like Focus Fast Alakazam is very scary for this team. So I'm tempted to bring Scizor, like a banded Scizor. And since we don't have a choice Mon on this team so far, Scizor looks like the best option for our third offensive Mon to make this a real solid balance team. But can anyone notice the big weakness in this team so far? I'm sure there's many. But the one thing that's very glaring to me right now is the weakness of Volcarona. Like, imagine if I'm choice locked on Scizor Bullet Punch, if Volcarona Quiver Dances, it's over. The game ends on the spot. So unfortunately, this is why I hate Volcarona. We're gonna have to find a way to remedy that. So maybe, like we could do things like make the Keldeo a Scarf Keldeo, but I don't really like that. So I think all that's left is just to be a lot more intelligent with how we play. I mean, we could replace Scizor with Azumarill, so let's put that up there as a potential option. We could fit in a Dragonite as a win condition, but then we're really compounding the Weavile weakness. So I hope you guys see my thought process. This is how you want a team build and balance. You want to go through this, and then you want to go through a mental checklist of the things you're weak to. And this does take some experience to spot the flaws in your team. We're weak to Volk. We're weak to fire in general. We have triple steel, so I don't like that immediately. I don't like the fact that we're triple steel. We're very weak to fire in general, not just Volcarona. So I think Scizor is out. Maybe we go in with Azumarill. We run this double water style. This does help a lot against fire and Volk and Blaziken. So I do like this over Scizor. But we'll keep Scizor in mind. Now, what else is this team? I'm actually pretty happy with this. I do like it. Gotta check through all the big threats in the meta right now. It is still very Keldeo weak, huh? We're weak to opposing Calm Keldeo. Can we play good enough so that it's not a problem? Yeah, I mean, we have a Azumarill for this role. We have Banded Azumarill. Yeah, I think for that reason, that's another reason why to put Azumarill over Scizor. So this, okay, I'm happy with this as a rough sketch of my Gengar team. So I hope that's useful. Last check. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the way that looks. There are some issues, like switching into Gliscor is kind of rough, you know. Nothing really wants to switch into Gliscor. Like if I was HP Ice Zapdos, it'd be fine. We would have a fine team, but I'm not. So if you're an HP Ice Zapdos owner, this team looks pretty good. All right, that's it for this section.